Hello everyone. Today we would like to give you a talk about the application of the entropy weight and TOPSIS method in health and sustainability evaluation of higher education systems. My name is Rishan Yang.
My name is Pinzhe Chen.
And I'm Mike.
I'm Wufeng Tian. I'm the faculty advisor for this project.
Here is an overall view of today's talk. First, we will give you an introduction about the background of this project. Then we will introduce the determination of health and sustainable index for higher education. After that, we will explain how are we applying our data using entropy weight method and TOPSIS method to evaluate the health and sustainability of higher education systems. Then we will present a case study. And at last, we will end up with conclusion discussion on our future work. A system of higher education is a crucial element to further educate citizens who have finished the required primary and secondary education to improve a country's economic power and its industrial development. Different nations' higher education system has different strengths and weaknesses. As we know that many universities in developed countries not only educate their own students, but also attract many international students from all over the world every year. Many international students choose their university based on their university rankings. Most of these ranking systems are based on the data of the university financial resources, faculty resources, student selectivity, graduation rates, and reputation, etc. However, none of the existing ranking systems actually reflect the health and sustainability of our higher education system, or has taken the health and sustainability of our higher education system into much consideration. During COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 spring, almost all of the higher education institutions shut down the door. Majority of them were not ready for any sort of alternative remotely or online teaching approach. Some small private colleges were closing permanently because of COVID-19 pandemic. In the wake of the adjustment required during the current pandemic, we have the opportunity to reevaluate our higher education system and think about what is working and what could be doing better and how we should access the health and sustainability of a nation's higher education institution.
We first define a set of indicators of health and sustainable higher education system. The first indicator is the index of the sustainable environment for the development of higher education. We believe that the sustainable environment contains three important aspects. The first one is sufficient financial support from the government and from the family, and great innovation. The proportion of education expenditure in GDP can directly reflect the importance of a country's attaches to education can whether education can related industry have sufficient funds to maintain health development. Innovation ability can be a product of country's higher education development and also served as a driving force. The level of country's innovation index can be a good assessment of its ability for the sustainable development of higher education, which can well reflect the innovation output and that the higher education system bring to the country. Second indicator is financial status. As we know, many small private colleges are permanently closed because of falling enrollments, growing debt, and other financial problems. We would like to evaluate the financial status based on the following three aspects: staffing cost, learning materials, and resource access fee, facility maintenance fee. Accessibility is a critical factor. It reflects how many people of the right age in a country can receive higher education, and how many people can further complete their degrees. The higher the accessible rate would reflect a better ability to provide higher education. In this indicator, we assess the following four indicators: percentage of high school graduates attending college, national college dropout rate, percentage of undergraduates admitted into graduate school, and the percentage of graduate students receive degrees, master or PhD. The next indicator is equity, diversity, and inclusion. With economic development and globalization, equity and diversity have become more and more important. We believe that an equitable admission requirement, equitable opportunity to receive higher education, and how much effort to welcome diversity would be the main indicators to reflect the equity, diverse, and inclusion of a higher education system. Academics are a very important part of higher education system. It represents the quality of our higher education. There are many things we can evaluate, such as the quality and quantity of research projects, the number of world-class universities, the scientific research capability of universities, and the quality of degrees. These all affect how much output the higher education system can bring and whether graduates can have a bright future. Affordability is an important aspect for students to receive higher education. A health and sustainable education system will charge affordable tuition and fees, provide enough financial aid and scholarship to help students to complete their higher education. For students, parents, and institutions, the rising cost of education is a very serious and growing issue right now.
After we define the index of a higher education system, next we will need to determine the weights of each index. There are numerous techniques to determine the index weights. The common use of objective weight method are principal component analysis, criteria importance through inter-criteria correlation method, and entropy weight method. In order to eliminate the human disturbance and objectively evaluate our higher education system, in this paper, we use the entropy weight method to determine the weight of each index. Let me introduce a mathematical and scientific way of getting our weights. The entropy weight method is used to determine the index weight is calculated as the following. Suppose there are m countries and n pieces of indexes in our evaluation system. Xij is the jth index value in the ith country. The standardized value of the ith index in the jth sample is denoted as Pij. This is called the standardization of measure values. After we got the standardization of our measure values, Pij, then we can calculate the entropy value using the equation in the table, which defined as this. As we know that the larger the E is, which is the entropy, the greater the differentiation degree index I is, and more information can be derived. The calculation of the weight EI is defined as the following. Using the equation we got out weights, making sure that they are objective and scientific.
So next we will be introducing the technique for order of preference by similarity to ideal solution, which is the TOPSIS, and how we will utilize it to evaluate an education system. Let's start with a table consisting of M alternative and N criteria, or specifically in the situation, M countries and N indexes. We'll be comparing each index of a country with that of other countries separately. Therefore, we construct a matrix of size M and with Xij is the jth index value of the ith country. For the values of an index, each country is measured differently, resulting in incomparable numbers. Because of that, we will use this formula being shown in the slide to generalize all collected data to a standard scale. In other words, normalization. Next, we need to find the weighted matrix from our initial matrix figure above. In order to do so, we just have to simply multiply all values by the weight values of their corresponding country, which we have already obtained through the entropy weight method. After processing our indexes and finalizing the weighted matrix, we are now ready to compare the education system between countries. In our example, AB stand for the best value of every attribute of the matrix, and AW stand for, otherwise, of course, the worst value of every attribute of the matrix. For this step, we just need to compare number to number and see which one are the biggest and lowest to be AB and AW respectively. AB and AW will be our temporarily most ideal and poorest conditions for each criteria, and we will measure the differences between AB and AW with all the values of the same criteria, which we also call it the L2 normal distances. Using the two formulas presented in the slide, we should be able to compute DIW, the difference between the worst condition and the I country's condition of an index, and DIB, the difference between the best condition and the ith country's condition of an index. Finally, we convert those distances to numbers which values are ranged from a scale of 0 to 1. If we are evaluating possesses the highest value of an attribute, which is AB, then we should obtain a value of 1. And if the country that we are evaluating possesses the lowest value of an attribute, which is AW, then we would obtain a value of 0. This is called relative degree of approximation, which we will use to rank this country. The closer the value to 1, the healthier and more sustainable a country's education system is. And it's time to test our technique. Here we have 3 example countries, and for some criteria such as sustainable environment, accessibility, etc. They're quite hard to measure with numbers, so we just come up with a very simple scoring system as an illustration to save time. We will now be showing our example calculator tables following the step we have presented. So we ended up having an overscored evaluation table for the three countries. As you can see, US scored up to 0.8 for accessibility, while Zimbabwe only scored 0.28, meaning that higher education is more widely available in the US, and there is much room for improvement in Zimbabwe. And here are some of our suggestions for a better higher education system. And that is pretty much everything. Thanks everyone for listening, and hope you all have a great day.